Thanks, Traman. Okay, so hi everyone. Welcome to day 2 of SFF at the talent stage. I'm Antoinette and I'll be your moderator for this session, Recruiters Confidential in Search of the Perfect Candidate. And I'm here with the esteemed panel of recruiters, a very, very, very rare sight. Speakers, are you ready to get grilled? Because I might need you guys to sign an indemnity form just in case the questions get too hot and spicy. Okay, but I joke. Before we start the session, it's my honor to introduce the overqualified panel of speakers. And first up, we have Antoinette Louise. So Antoinette is the Vice President of Talent Acquisition, APAC at Mastercard. We have Chris, Director of Human Resource Business Partnerships at Circle. Nile, who is the Managing Director at Page Group. And we have Patricia, the Executive Search Technology at Carey Consulting. Okay. So, we'd like to start off this panel being a little fun. So, speakers, on your chair, you have a set of red and green flags, and I'll be playing a game with you. So, I will give you a scenarios, like job hopping every 6 months, red flag or green flag, and then you decide whether it is, a red flag or green flag, and we'll follow up with a discussion afterwards. Okay, so first one, ChatGPT cover letters. Red flag or green flag? Both red flag. Okay, we have 1 red flag and 3 mixed decisions. Okay, maybe we'll start with Antoinette. Why red?
The reason I put red is because the point of the cover letter is to say something really about yourself, right? Yeah. And then it ends up just being so specific, only for that context. I'm not against ChatGPT. I'm not against using AI. I'm from a FinTech company. I'm all about it. But just the question was about the cover letter, right? And I'd love to hear something personal and very specific in that.
Maybe later on we can ask the audience instead what they think about AI. Okay, Chris, how about you?
50-50. I think, the robot starts writing it for you. Then you meet the person real life. It's, like watching the movie trailer and then you watch the real movie. It's like something's missing here. So, yeah, 50-50. Let's see.
Chris?
I think for me, it's technology is there to be utilized. You got to marry it in the right way. So to Chris' point earlier, it cannot remove the human element because after the cover letter or the resume is selected, you still need to get an interview done. And you can't be a different person altogether. But I think there is merit in utilizing it, making sure there's no grammatical errors because given the technology that we have, we should be maximizing what we can.
Okay, how about yourself, Patricia?
So I feel like you can use ChatGPT to create a structure. So you use that for 70% of the cover letter and then you heavily personalize that. So it's like 50-50 for me as well.
Okay, so next one. Saying I don't know how to do this activity or a task 1 month into the job. I mean, I personally have a fear, but what do you guys think? Oh, green flag. Wait, it's okay? Okay, wait, why is that so? I'm curious. Yeah.
So if you don't know something, better acknowledge that you don't know something early on, right? If you're 1 month into the job, you have most notice periods, probation periods are 3 months. If you have 1 month in, you better back up, you raise out that you have an issue, rather than let it fester and sit there and wallow in self-despair for the next 2 months.
Yeah, I think for me it's, you got to make sure that you're creating an environment within an organization where you can speak up because there's always a hesitation. We were talking backstage earlier, a lot of people who joined during COVID joined at home. They didn't join office environment. So, in your head, you're thinking that are you disturbing the other person by pinging them on Teams or Zoom or Skype or whatever it is. Whether the reality is that we are in a hybrid environment and we got to create an environment where people can ask questions. I mean, the probation thing, you're going to be confirmed only if you are able to deliver.
I think no matter where you are in your career, your communication skills, your feedback has to be on point. Whether you're the manager, whether you're the employee, listening, speaking, it's going to be really clear, it's going to be really transparent. So yes, if you don't know it, tell me. It's okay.
See, if you're 1 month in, I'd say just think about what you were doing a few months ago, You probably gave an amazing case study, some fantastic interviews, some fantastic written tests to get that job. So remember that. You put a lot of effort to get that job and you're smart. That's why you got it. So a month in, if you have a question and there's something you don't know, feel more than happy to just raise your hand and ask that question.
I think it's better to acknowledge you don't know something than not knowing that you don't even know that what you don't know, right? Yeah. So the third one, showing up for a job interview with designer goods top to toe. I heard this saying before, don't show up to an interview wearing a better watch than the interviewer. Okay, we have mixed and then we have red flags. We can maybe start with the red flag.
I think it's not advisable that you go in and you let's say you have it top to toe and you are decked out in designer goods and it's super obvious, you're distracting the interviewer. So I think you don't want to distract the interviewer. You want the interview to be precisely about what you can bring to the table for that job, in that career. Bring strength to your experience, bring that focus there, rather than to be too distracting. It's similar to, like showing up in a very flashy jacket. You won't wear a sequin jacket to an interview.
Yeah, I think I will agree with your point. The only reason why I had both flags is, you got to dress to impress, and depending on the kind of role that you're going for, if you're applying for a luxury good company, it's going to be very different than you're going for an oil and gas company. So it can't be the similar sort of attire for both sides of the audience. So dress to impress, but read the room and make sure that you get the right choice.
Same. Read the room, know your client, present yourself the right way, make right decisions.
Antoinette?
The same. Just know your audience, right? When you're walking into any meeting, an interview is the same. So dress accordingly.
Okay. Fourth one, not asking a follow-up question after the job interview. Not asking a follow-up question after the job interview. Ah, okay. 2 reds and 2 mixed. Maybe we can start from Antoinette and
So
Chris.
it kind of depends. If there were questions asked during the interview and it ended up being a conversation, then it's done. It's nicely rounded up, right? And then actually it gets a little bit awkward if somebody's trying to force fit a follow-up question for the sake of it right at the end of that conversation. But yes, if you haven't asked a question during an entire 30, 40 minutes interview, that is potentially a challenge. And the reason it is because you have the opportunity to display curiosity. So why wouldn't you kind of ask a few questions about that job or the company?
Yeah, same. You wish you could fit everything into 60 minutes of an interview, but if you had to follow up, absolutely, please do it. But don't kind of force it, try and make up a smart question just to seem like you're overly interested. It's okay. Read the room.
I think for me, being in recruitment, I've been doing this for 16 years now with Paige. And this is the smallest tip and the biggest tip. Everyone needs to prepare a question before you go into the interviews. And you got to be prepared very well. And to your point earlier, inquisitiveness is a characteristic that can be displayed during an interview session and a differentiator with others who are interviewing for the same job. And your line of questioning actually will make you stand apart than just the skill set. Because if you're a fresh grad, pretty much everyone graduating from the same cohort with the same education, probably the similar GPAs, would not have anything on the technicalities which would be differentiator. So it's a lot on the soft skills and your ability to digest that and bring it to the table.
So we always remind our candidates that in an interview is your chance to interview the interviewer as well, right? So I agree with Antoinette and Chris. You don't ask questions for the sake of asking questions. So those questions must be thoughtful. Like Nile said, you have to go in prep for this, right? If you go in and you come out of the 60-minute interview, you're not learning anything new about the organization, the culture, the hiring manager's work style. Actually, you have that 60 minutes to fully utilize that, to assess the interviewer as well, right? Whether you want this person to be your boss in the future. Because after that, it's all like desktop research. You can find out as much as you want on due diligence on due diligence on a company, but you are not going to be able to see the guy again and ask him the questions that you want to.
I think most importantly, the takeaway is to be genuine when you ask a question. Be inquisitively curious about the question you're asking on. Okay, I saved the best for last. Okay, intern maxing. Okay, so for the audience who may not know what intermaxing is, it's basically doing like 8 different internships throughout your university or polytechnic life. Green flag. Okay, 3 green flags and 1 mixed. Maybe we'll start with you, Antoinette.
The only reason I put both flags up is it's a tough world out there for students right now or anybody trying to start their careers, right?
Yes.
So if I see a resume where someone's done a whole lot of internship, I just pause to ask a few more questions and understand why. And if they've really delivered some value in those internships, that's fine, right? So I wouldn't make a value judgment that quickly.
I think also the duration of which each internship is kind of split by,
Yeah, exactly,
many factors
right?
that play in.
A couple of months of internship, if someone's able to talk to problems they've solved or the work that they have done, that's perfectly fine.
Maybe we'll start with you.
Just reading the room here for the students in this section. Just get as much exposure as you can, I think. I don't think intermaxing is a bad thing, but just getting your exposure into various departments, industries, roles, super important. I think you'll make better decisions later in your career after that as well.
Really?
I think when I was graduating in good old days, I pretty much knew what I wanted to get into.
So you
The
just
students-
graduated?
You're very stereotype, right? If you are doing such and such education, you go into such and such fields. In my days, it was all engineers going into banking, which is bizarre, but that was the trend. That's the first job you want to apply for. So unless you had that experience as an intern for an engineering role or a banking role or a product role or a tech function or the new age ESG sort of roles, you don't know really what you want to do. And I think the students of today are blessed that they have that exposure opportunity. The amount of exposure that we are getting as students is a lot more than at least when I was doing internships. So I think you have to utilize the exposure, but got to have some minimum duration for each of these internships. Otherwise, you can't really see a totality of development for yourself.
Patricia?
Yeah, we only learned from Angeline earlier backstage how competitive it is these days to be an undergrad. But I would say intermaxing, to me, is green flag because you get to work with different people, work in different industries, environments. I think once you lock into your full-time role, there's no excuse for jumpiness in your CV once you're in there, right? Like you can't change your job every 6 months, give it a try. You really have to lock yourself in to really deliver something. So I think intermaxing does give you that opportunity to try different things. I think it also puts you through that whole interview process, right? So when you are really interviewing for your real job, your full-time job, you have gone through the grind. Right? Angeline was saying that there are certain banks where they put you in a room, you have to kind of like shine and stand out among your peers. It's the same when you're doing your full-time recruitment. It's exactly the same. So I think it prepares you for the real world.
It's like building the resilience. And also, I mean, at least for me, I take internship as a test bed to make mistakes, right? If you kind of make mistakes at the job, the consequences are not too bad. Not as bad as if you are full-time staff, right? Yeah, I think that also kind of ties in.
Maybe if I could add on, right? Like when you're doing internships, the main thing is after that, remember to get proper feedback from the manager that has managed you, because this is almost like real life practical learning while you're doing your schoolwork still. You know, you're still in school. There are ways you can learn beyond your curriculum.
Okay, so, I mean, I shared with the speakers backstage, but I'm currently in my penultimate year at university, and like many of my peers, we've done countless of video interviews. And if we are lucky enough to get through the higher view stage, we'll get an interview with the real person, the hiring manager. But most don't. So please kindly spill the tea on what do recruiters look at inside the resume or the video interview to make it through the first cut. And maybe we'll start with that first, and then I have a bonus question to ask later on. So what do you guys look at in the video interview?
Should I start with the resume?
Yeah.
And then go on to that? I think it's quite easy to fall into a pattern of updating your resume with a list of your job description. And a lot of very senior, seasoned people tend to do it as well, so it's not just a young person or an intern thing. But I'd say steer away from that, because that space is an opportunity for you to talk about what's the impact that you've made, right? Did you solve a problem? Did you help solve a problem? Did it save some time? Did it save some money? right? This is not the place to be shy. So talk about what you've done and the impact that you've made in as succinct a manner as possible. Keep your CV short. Because the reality is recruiters are spending maybe 2 minutes on your CV. We have very busy lives, right? So what is your elevator pitch in 2 minutes? That's your resume. So you got to be smart about what you put in there.
For the students out there, so video interviews, just drill yourself, practice, practice, practice. And make sure you come off natural. I think that's really important. For anyone out there with CVs being screened, absolutely. I think just make sure you know what you delivered and make sure that's really clear. And no typos, please.
I think very, very similar. Impact and presentation. Those are the two key things, especially when we have been doing a lot of video interviews, and when you go into the real interviews, it should not look like that there's a difference between the two. Now, even the video interviews can be done through AIs. And you can really ace that section. So you've got to be very careful what you're doing because it's borderline plagiarism. So be very, very careful on those lines. But I think impact, quantitative or qualitative, whatever you have done in your career. I saw a question, how many pages the resume? You have to create that impact in those 2 pages. And as long as that's captured, and I think relevant to the role, I think you have a good shot.
I think most of the salient points are covered. I mean, what I typically look for is if there's a lot of jumpiness in the CV, I would appreciate, like the reasons for leaving. Because sometimes it's not the candidate's fault. Company may have closed down, the job may be irrelevant, no longer relevant, right? So having those reasons for leaving actually helps me to negate the jumpiness of the CV. What I also like to see in a CV is a lot more personalized information. So like something that adds on beyond, like, of course, the achievements, right? And for achievements, as much as possible, quantify it. Like let's say we say, I've increased revenue. I had the best sales team, but you increased revenue by how much? Like when you took it on, what was it? And like, I describe myself as a very good team manager, like what was the engagement score when I first took over the team, and what's the stability, what's the attrition rate? Like, I think if you're going to put words like that in there, try to quantify it. And I like to see words that describe the human. So like collaborative, a short professional summary always helps me to just get a sense of who you are as a professional. So like, is your work style collaborative in nature? Yeah.
Actually, Nile, you touched on quite an interesting point. AI, right? I've heard in the industry, or rather from my peers, that some companies, when we submit like higher view interviews, you guys use AI to transcribe and pick out keywords that companies are looking for. Is that a myth or a fact? Maybe like you, Chris, or whoever.
I can take that one. So in my previous organization, I led the team that implemented HireView, right? So I have a reasonable understanding of how HireView works, at least. I won't claim to know all of the AI tools out there. So what it does is essentially when we speak into that camera, there's a recording of us, right? And it's a very simple thing. All it does is put subtitles to what is being said. So like you're watching a movie, if you're watching a Korean movie and watching it with subtitles, it's getting translated into English. That's what HireView does. It does help because sometimes, the enunciation, your pronunciation, I actually think it helps the candidate because then the person listening to the video doesn't actually misinterpret anything, right? So
can I ask, it's used more of a tool to transcribe the interview rather than pick out certain keywords that the company is looking for, like resilience or I don't know what kind of values that the company believes in.
AI can do a lot of things these days, right? But the HireView, the tool that you're specifically speaking about, does transcription, right?
Thank you. Any of the speakers want to teach you?
Unfortunately, we're not using AI yet because it's not part of our CRM tool. But what I would suggest is that you have a CV, and the CV is supposed to list down all the achievements that you have done, accomplishments. But you send the CV out to like 5 different job descriptions. So tailor your CV for each of the different jobs that you are applying for, because what your hiring manager is looking for, what the recruiter is looking for, is probably quite a significant overlap in terms of the job responsibilities versus what's on your CV.
I think following up on that, you get past the video interview, maybe you meet the hiring manager, but what if I don't even get to that point? What if I don't have a fantastic GPA? Then what should I do, Is that the potential end of my career into getting into investment banking or big tech company? Maybe we can start with Chris?
Definitely not the end of your career, so don't worry.
I'm exaggerating. But yeah.
Again, know what roles you're applying for. It's not just students out there, but anyone, right? I think you don't necessarily need to have the best degree, the smartest person in the room. I think in the previous sessions they were talking about soft skills being just as much as important as the hard skills. So no, definitely not a game over. But I think from there, it's like a video game. You got to just keep adding skills, right? You all start at 0, you all start at level 1, and through your career, through your life, add skills on. Keep adding things which you think is useful, value add for your career, value add for your team. I think over time those things are much more meaningful.
So stay inquisitive.
I think I will just add on. If you have a low GPA, if you're a fresh grad, where else did you spend your time? And is that reflective in your CV? Because it's got to be something that you're compensating with. And there are a lot of co-curriculars which are being seen quite favorably by organizations when they're looking at fresh grads coming out of school. Because what Chris says, people are not looking for, being in the box sort of a situation. They want to see whether you have been exploring something out of the box, which is not comfortable. So if you can be uncomfortable in a student life and find comfort in that, I think you have a good chance when you're going into the professional world.
It's a bit like barter trading your time, right? Good GPA, maybe you don't have so much time for non-academic stuff, but if you focus and have a passion project of sorts, then maybe that could value add into the CV eventually, even without a good GPA. Absolutely. And then maybe my next question would be, in terms of standing out and advocating for yourself, right? Because I think what you spoke about on soft skills, what tips will you give the audience here to build a personal brand? And what does a personal brand look like in a comprehensive manner?
I think these days, online brand is a very important brand. People go to LinkedIn to find out who you are, to start with. If that's not coming across as pretty easy to read, pretty easy to understand, if you only have got your title and nothing below that, that would create an impression which won't be positive. So online branding has become a very big thing. Whether you are a very young, experienced person or very experienced person, I think that's one area to look at for sure.
I mean, just adding on to what Nele said, recently I went back to my alma mater to give some career advice to a bunch of 14-year-old girls. And these are 14-year-old girls, right? So after the chat, they came up to me and they showed me their phone and they said like, oh, can you add me on LinkedIn? I was like, you're 14 years old. You have LinkedIn profiles? And out of curiosity, I just clicked into one of them. They had like papers that they have written, work stints that they have, projects that they feel very passionate about, whether they're in school team, and it's like their report card of their 14 years of life, right? And I think we can learn from the junior generation, the younger generation, because they put in so much pride into building a online brand already. The other tip I would give would be to join focus groups or community groups that you really feel for. Right, so we do have this colleague who runs our energy and commodities desk. She feels a lot about women's underrepresentation in mining. So she signed up as a mentor for WIMA, and she regularly gives back through that. And through that, you build your network. And because you care and you are passionate about that particular community, those relationships actually go a lot deeper.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I'll start updating my LinkedIn more often nowadays. Oh my gosh, during my time, we were forced to create LinkedIn profiles as a module in Polytechnic. And then now kids are doing it out of their own free time just to document. I think that's fantastic and amazing.
I need to pause here. If you're saying during your time, please look at the body language of the people sitting here. We are like, oops.
No, but I think in this social media age, right, everything you do should ideally be documented, and it's also a kind of report card of yourself and your journey as a human being. And I think we have about 19 minutes left. Why not we try this? You know, we were talking about AI, and I think what the speakers were talking backstage was that they want to know and listen to the audience how you feel about AI. So let's turn the tables onto the audience and ask you, what do you use AI for? And any brave souls willing to answer this question, what do you use AI for? It can be in any setting, in school, even for your resume. You know, you have a talented panel of HR recruiters here. I think this is the time for students, your chance to shine in front of them. So if anyone is brave enough? Yes, we have one student. Over there?
You are not a student.
I use AI to...
Sorry. Could you introduce yourself?
Right,
as well?
okay. Hey, I'm Yuan. I'm part of Circle. I work there as a BD. And I use AI to check my CV for typos.
Okay, guilty. I think it's a good practice also, right? Like if you use like a second eye, I would say, to check your CV for typos or grammatical errors, it kind of strengthens it. So good use of AI.
We used to use the Microsoft Word spell check. I mean, it serves the same purpose.
You're giving away our age.
Do we have anyone else? Maybe one more person?
In the corner.
Oh, hello, my name is Nathaniel Mumba, and I'm a student from Asia Pacific University in Malaysia.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, yes. So for me, I think I typically found an everyday use for AI in my life, from everything that ranges to like searching for job applications, for searching for skills that I may need for the roles that I want to do in the future, as well as just my assignments and everyday planning. Yes.
Any particular platform which has been good for you?
Of course, the main one I use is ChatGPT. Yeah. But if anything, if it's for my assignments, maybe I use Bing AI. If it's for other things, I use other platforms as well. Then yes.
Now we have a plethora of AI tools, right? We need to clarify which one is it and which is the best one in the market. Okay, maybe we can move on to Pigeonhole. So I can see that we have quite a few questions, and the most rated one here, okay. What recommendations will you give to individuals with over 5 years of experience who are looking to transition into the fintech industry despite not having previous experience in the field? Any speakers want to take that up?
I think, the one thing with the fintech industry in the last decade or so almost is that the change of pace is just so fast, right? So even when candidates come in with technical expertise, which is always valued, let's be fair about that, we know that pretty quickly some of those technical experiences will no longer be as important as they were because there'll be new technologies that have replaced them, right? So if you're looking to move in, I'd say it's not the end of the world if you don't have all of the technical skills that you need. One, try to, in theory, pick up and learn a few things. That shows that you're curious and motivated and that you've learned at least the theory of what you want to talk about. And secondly, is find a way to describe or display your learning agility, because that's what will matter most. Anything you talk about in the interview will probably be passé by the time you get that job, right? So if you can convince the recruiter or the hiring manager that you can learn really quickly a new skill or a new technology and pivot, that could hold you in pretty good stead if you're looking for that kind of 5-year plus career move.
Okay. We have a spike in votes for the next question. 1 or 2 page resume. I think this is a very sensitive topic maybe for some of us, because I guess my resume is like what, 1.5 page. I typically try not to hit the 2 page, but let us know what you think.
I think for fresh grads, I think that probably sounds right, capturing the internship. So if you have been as you said, the word intern maxer, maxi interns. So if you've got 7, 8 internships, it's very difficult to capture in 1 page, unless you want to remove some of them that you don't think are relevant. But for an experienced individual, and this question we get a lot with individuals with 15, 20 years of experience, what is the right length? And honestly speaking, you can always concise the early part of your career into a summary, because if that's not really relevant to what you're applying for now, what you did 15 years ago, then put a summary rather than every single job or every single company has got a similar sort of my key responsibility, my achievements, because it's a little bit outdated. And you got to really try to do that within 2 to 3 pages maximum for even an experienced individual, because it shows that you understand what role are you applying for, and to your point earlier about customizing it and making it relevant to the role that you're applying, that's more important.
I just want to say that just don't change the font size. Like, we see like 17-pager CVs, and then you tell them to, kind of like keep it short and concise. I mean, if you work for like 25 years, you try to tell your whole life story, which is great. And then we say try to keep it shorter, and then you mess up with the font size. It comes back and it's almost illegible.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind moving forward. Next question we have is, given that students in university have limited time for internships, 3 summers in 4 years, okay, wow, did the math, and have many competing interests such as exchange programs and volunteering, doesn't intern maxing create a heavily one-sided profile where now companies and the government is hyping transferable skills? Yeah, it's a juggle, right? Let us take a moment, pause for a moment to think.
I think you need to ask the question, why is intern maxing happening to begin with? And this is a conversation I'm having with some government bodies where we are looking at how do we stay relevant for tomorrow. And the students of today really want to explore, and they want to make sure that there's a purpose-led role that they are getting into. A lot of us ended up in roles because that made sense, logically. In here, you have both EQ and IQ both combined as they're getting out into the workforce. One of the questions that has become redundant, and we have removed it from our own interviewing processes, where do you see yourself in 5 years? They don't have a clue. They want you to tell them, why should I be there with you for more than a year to begin with? So company has to sell it now. It's the other way around. So, and that is why the concept of gig economy is picking up a lot more, because you want flexibility of changing and shifting, because in a perm role, you're always asked, what's your past experience, to match it up to a largest degree and get into that role. Whereas in a contract, you have a little bit of flexibility. So if someone was talking about moving into FinTech, if they are not completely from a FinTech industry, but you have something similar, it's easier with a gig concept than a perm concept to start with. And then you make your money worth with your performance.
Yeah, I think when you look at a candidate, if there's been an intentionality about building a diverse set of experiences, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? Broader perspective from various internships will add value to the current one. So I wouldn't shy away from hiring somebody if they had more exposure. That would just bring more value to our job.
Okay, thank you for sharing. We have time for about 3 more questions. So we have one that's heavily voted as well. With the markets doing so badly, including layoffs in the FinTech world, what is your view of this trend and how to stay relevant for this industry? I mean, FinTech is ever changing, right? One day you have a technology, next day you have another.
Yeah. I think in real estate, there's a saying, location, 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 right?
Is that a Modern Family reference?
And then here, it's learn, 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 right? And this is, I don't know who's asked the question, if you're an intern or if you work for 25 years. It's the same thing for me as well, right? So keep learning, right? If you can pick up a new skill, if you can pick up a new experience that could be valuable to you and to the next organization, do it. Because things are changing pretty rapidly. And, even with Donald Trump winning the elections and all of that, I don't think anybody's got a crystal ball into what's really going to happen with the economy and where the future lies. So yeah, learn, learn, learn.
100%. Just really quickly, I guess, a side mission for any of you in this position, go and socialize. Open up your digital network, open up your personal networks, go to FinTech groups, learn, meet new people. I'm not encouraging you to bypass the recruitment process. Please apply for jobs. But most of the time, we hire from referrals, people we know, people in our ecosystem. That's why maybe it's tough to break in. Grow your network.
Patricia, you want to go first?
Yeah, I just want to address this point about the FinTech layoffs, right, and the view of the trend. So, of course, as a recruiter, we are very close to the ground on this, and we do have a pulse on it. It's been quite challenging the last couple of years for FinTechs. But I think one good thing that's come up out of this is that FinTechs, we see, because funding is not so easy to get now, everyone's a bit more careful with their hiring. So they're not like, the checkbook is open and we're just going to hire massive loads of people. So every hire now is more thoughtful, which is great because it shows that there's a purpose for this person joining the organization. There is a role that this person has to play. So hopefully the FinTech layoffs will come off a bit just because everyone is more thoughtful at the planning stage.
I think we spoke a little bit about upskilling. Within the bigger industries, bigger companies, I think maybe you could share more about how the companies support the individuals inside the company on upskilling. Just like maybe LinkedIn learning, is that something that employees should take time during work hours to do? Is that something that companies support nowadays?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I'd say not just big companies, I'd say pretty much all companies. It's very much in the interest of the company to have workers that are upskilled and able to do the job. If I speak for Mastercard specifically, we actually encourage putting in 20% of your work time towards learning and development, right? That can be taking a secondment, actually doing something hands-on because people like that sometimes and learn better. Or it could be, as you said, LinkedIn learning or a classroom training or self-paced learning. One of the things I've seen evolve in the space of learning, which I think is quite useful for those who are working and learning, is bite-sized learning. So, you need not necessarily have a 4-hour course and have that time. And if you don't, you can do bite-sized pieces of learning. There's also a lot of free learning out there. Coursera is one of them and a few others. So if you're really curious and want to learn, you don't necessarily need to have very deep pockets. There are top universities actually putting out free content there.
Start also thinking about what is needed in the future. If you start planting seeds to feed yourself right now, you go hungry after a while. You see a lot of exhibits here talking about generative AI. That's a sort of skill set which is transferable into many industries, many offices. Fixing a CV, I can do a JD up 10 seconds with the help of generative AI. Those skill sets in the future may make you more appealing than someone with only X amount of time in an industry, because you have transferable skills as well.
Yeah, so capitalize on the experience, right? So we have time for probably 1 to 2 more questions. How do you best package a generalist resume with varied job roles and industry over a 10-year or more experience and getting rejected for not being a specialist in a role?
I can take that one. First of all, the question is, why are you applying for a specialist role if you have been generalist for 10 years? So if you know that answer, then your CV needs to depict that. Otherwise, it will defeat the purpose irrespective of whatever you write on the CV. The second thing is, in these kind of scenarios, I think cover letter works very well because your resumes won't be able to bring out the passion through the experience you might have had. So I would highly recommend, if individuals are switching completely, to look at cover letter concept. Now, sometimes these days, most of the companies don't ask for one, but that doesn't mean that you can't send one. So you gotta stand out through really focusing on what and why you want to get in there.
So then the next question, which nicely ties up with that, what are some things that speak out to you the most that uniquely sets someone apart from other candidates, other than, selling a story of your journey, which I think every one of us has very unique sets of experiences? What is the most, things that you look at typically?
The name of this session is In Search of the Perfect Candidate. But in the spirit of radical candor, I'd like to just say, I don't think there is such a thing as a perfect candidate. I really don't think there's such a thing as a perfect job. Yeah, and the reason I'm going roundabout is I'm going to answer that question with what I really think. I think there's a right candidate for a particular job. And so to whoever's asked this question, right, what will set you apart depends on what is the job that you've applied for, right? So prepare. Practical answer is prepare. Understand the job that you've applied for. Reflect. What have you done in the past, right? That could be most relevant to this job. And then don't be shy, right? Call that out and explain that in a succinct and impactful manner. And leave aside this, don't try to be perfect for everyone. You're not going to be the perfect candidate for every job and for every organization. Make up your mind about where you think you want to be, and then give that your 100% and get that right.
Thank you so much for your insightful sharing. Before I officially close up this session, I have one last question, a personal question of mine. What kind of Marvel superhero would you hire? Can be Marvel or, I guess, Disney. Princess or sorts.
I wouldn't hire, too expensive. The market's not good.
Doctor Strange, whether you're starting your career or you're in the middle or somewhere near the end, you know what I mean when you need more time.
But his EQ is so bad.
Sorry?
His social skills are so bad.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
I second that.
If he can manage time, okay.
I think for me, trying to pigeonhole someone into a superhero would be a conscious bias, and you start looking at a person from that angle. So I would have a superhero movie that I would love to watch, but not necessarily pigeonhole a candidate into it.
Perhaps everyone has unique skills and you create your own superhero. You are your own type of superhero. Patricia?
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man. Why Ant-Man? He shrinks.
Yeah, very adaptable, right? He can be very
okay.
big too. He can be very
Yeah.
small. He can get to
He can,
small
run,
places.
he can run away from the office.
Yeah, he's
That'd
very
be the scene, right?
humble.
Wait, I love
He's got
working
sense
in
of humor, which is necessary under stressful environments. Like this market is stressful.
Yeah. Wait, but I want to say that I love working in the office, actually. This is like good pantry, free aircon. Yeah, maybe not the most ideal situation for most people, but I genuinely like working in the office, if I have to say. Yeah. Okay, and I think that concludes our session on the Recruiters Confidential in Search of the Perfect Candidate. We hope that, the audience had as much fun as the panelists did. So thank you so much for joining us for this session, and we wish you all the best for the rest of the Singapore FinTech Festival. And thank you so much, speakers.